So yes, for those of you who don't, you know, who don't happen to carry the internet around with them everywhere they go, uh, yesterday at around 7 or so local time in Paris, France, the Notre Dame Cathedral caught fire. Um, it was built in the I think what was it, the 11th century or the 12th century?
14th century. I think it was like
Oh, 14th century. Sorry,
1300s.
14th century.
Yeah.
14th century, and it's withstood wars and plagues and famines and revolutions and world wars, and yet it finally succumbed to fire.
Well, they had been doing some renovations on the cathedral.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they were updating some things, and it appears now that it was something. They're saying it was just kind of like something accidental that
Mm-hmm.
sparked the fire, and yeah, they were worried that it was like going to damage it like permanently, like damage the structure to where
Right,
like
right, right.
they weren't sure they were going to be able to save it, but it appears like that's not the case. I mean, yeah, there's stuff that's destroyed that they'll never be able to regain back,
Mm-hmm.
but much of it, like they're going to be able to save the cathedral, which is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it also shows you they were marveling at the architecture of how it was built, that it was meant to withstand fires, like the rib structure with the buttresses that they worked on,
Mm-hmm.
like that medieval architecture. It's just uh, how well it was built is testament to how it stood for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I mean that's a good thing. But man, some of the surrounding stuff that like it was going on around there, because I in France there have been, I've heard his numbers as high as like some 800 like churches that have been burned down by um, either Islamic extremists or crazy socialists, that French leftists that have been burning churches down. Um, and I mean, obviously, like they weren't as famous as the Notre Dame Cathedral, but still. Um, and then even while the cathedral was burning down, there was various live stream videos of people watching what was going on, and just the ugliness of some of the comments and stuff that were being said about it is just uh, pretty horrible.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I assume that you're alluding to that video that Paul Joseph Watson put out, where people of a certain people of a certain persuasion were responding to the to the burning of Notre Dame Cathedral, with laughing emojis.
Yeah.
During one live stream, and you know this it was really just disgusting. Just to be frank, because how is something that that has stood for 800 years, that catches fire. How is that a laughing matter? How it's like one of the, and it's I think it was dubbed one of those like special like international like cultural sites. That it's not just a treasure for France, but it's a treasure for all humanity.
Right.
Um, I mean, granted, it wasn't as though it was the holy city. It was the holy city. The Vatican. Um,
It's one of those things where, listen, as a Christian, we don't believe that you know God is God is stuck in the building, and
right.
we're losing touch with God. I mean, we will move on. God lives within us, but as someone that loves history and um, just that's a part of church history that should
Right.
be preserved.
Hmm.
Um, and the fact is, a lot of these assholes from whether it's these Islamic extremists or socialist you know socialist atheists that they want to watch the world burn and create nothing in its wake, nothing of importance at least, and
Yeah, I
to
think.
watch them just kind of laugh in glee. So some of the comments and the everything is like they're relishing in the fact that, oh,
Right. I
thank
think.
God, there's too
Yeah, I
bad
think.
there's not like burned bodies in there. There's not there weren't people in there burning to death. It's like Jesus, that's some horrific stuff.
Yeah, I mean, pretty wild things. I remember. I believe seeing one tweet of someone saying like, oh, this is what you get for your colonial past or whatever, and it's just like it shouldn't be all that surprising, given the times that we live, where we're constantly told that we don't matter, we're nothing more than a clump of cells. um, so it shouldn't really be that much of a surprise, to see these nihilistic people put out such morose and just straight out hopeless kind of tweets, because these people these people aren't told that they're valuable, that they're that to kind of borrow a line from Yoda. It's like we're not this crude matter, luminous beings are we, and
Right.
and I think and the cathedral was a celebration of the divine inspiration, the connection between humans and God, and and for people to just like have no have no who don't know their own value, who don't see them like how the Father sees them, that's what's sad. I think ultimately.
Yeah, and it's this revisionist history that's gone on in the last, you know
50 or so
I would
years.
say century, yeah, 50 to 100 years, where, oh well, the West is terrible and we've done all this, there's all this imperialism and all this subjugation. It's like that's actually really not the case. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, bad things have happened, through any you look at any country in the world, pretty much all of them, they've all done something, all done terrible things. They're all Everyone has a dark history. But the thing is, there's also a lot of good things that have occurred through history, and Western civilization, for the most part, has done a lot of good and made the world a better place.
Mhm.
Um, it and why we have any sort of freedom and some peace within the world is due to Western civilization.
Mm.
Now people are going to take that out of context, like you're a white nationalist. Like that's not what Western civilization is about. Western civilization is a group of ideas and morals that have been passed on, and the reason why you can act like you know a
Complete
raging
jackass.
cunt, if you want, yeah, if you want to be, and you're going to be pretty much not bothered. Um, so it bothers me because the the generation that is just wants for there to be a complete destruction. They want to watch the world burn, but they have no ideas to rebuild it back.
Right. Because they think that that this current system, or the society that we have now, is so irredeemable that it has to be hard reset, raise it to the ground. But they don't have they don't have any ideas on how to make it better. I mean, or they kind of default to like the whole like socialist idea. And it's like, oh, let's just uh, you know uh, the government will take care of everything. And it's just like, no.
When has the government ever really done anything ever in history? That's what I would
Or
like to
like
know.
any government. What has any government done that was? I mean, because I always reminded of that of this story I heard, about when Samuel Morse first developed the telegraph, and the government came to him and said, "Hey, we want you to, this is, the telegraph thing is really great, and we can really open up communications throughout the country. So we want you to say we'll give you money, and set up, whatever you have to do to get the telegraph, all over the country." And Samuel Morse, you know, um, in a stroke of naivete, he said like, "Oh, you know what? I'm not really, my mind, I created this thing, yes, but I don't really have a mind to how to expand it. But I'm sure, you guys, the government can surely, expand this better than me."
Oh
And so
man.
he gave him all this. I don't know if he signed over the patent or whatever, but he basically gave it to the government for them to expand the telegraph system. And I think in 2 years they barely got like New York to Washington D.C. Wired up. Um, and so they're and then they're like, we can't do this. We don't like we're not really designed for this sort of thing. So then they outsourced it to the private sector. I think to a budding AT&T, or some sort of or one of the bells. And within a year they are able to get all the way up and down the eastern seaboard, and uh, up into north, like northeast Canada, and I think maybe even into like Greenland. I think it was more, but I don't want to like say that they got it all the way to Europe, but they were able to do a lot more because because they're a private company. There's less bureaucracy, less bloat in a private company. They were able to expand like crazy and within a shorter amount of time. So this idea that the government can like fix all our ills and provide for us is just complete
Yeah.
idiocy.
That was the same with the railways too.
Mm-hmm.
The government, like when the government was involved in trying to expand the railways, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they couldn't do it. It took them forever, and then the private sector lines ended up, they were across the continent in no time.
Right.
But this isn't just like, yeah, and obviously we're showing some American government examples, but this is any government that tries to get involved with anything. It's too much fucking bureaucracy,
Hmm.
ineptitude, and just people who don't belong, who have no intelligence, no thought for anything,
Hmm.
and no ingenuity.
Right.
Um,
I think the perfect example of government incompetence. If you ever need a refresher, just go to your local DMV.
God.
Just yeah. I mean, if anyone is anyone who's dealt with the DMV, to get their license or to renew their license or what have you, just imagine that. But just like, if you just need a reminder of how crappy government is, just take a look at the DMV, because that is government waste and incompetence, you know, at a more digestible level.
That is where dreams go to die.
Right. I mean, any interaction you have with someone, with an employee of the DMV is just like they hate it. They hate being there. They like resent being there, and they resent you for even coming to try and get your business done. It's like it's like it's like, well, it's your job to fucking help be there and to facilitate the services, but but the people there resent you for it.
It's crazy because I can see a little bit of both sides where you know you get like obviously like you get people there like that work there that hate being there, but I think a few of them have been worn down so much where it's like they deal with these fucking wackos like at the post office, and it's like they just get worn to the ground where it's like I've had it. I've had enough. I've had enough of this crap.
Well, yeah, well, okay, that's fair.
But
But I
no, but
mean,
but the thing is, like, it's also. But here's the other thing too: is it's a lot of the people that do work there. Like, I think it's incompetence and laziness because where else are you gonna go? Where else are you
exactly.
gonna go?
That's exactly right. You
It's
know,
a monopoly. That's what it is. Where else are you gonna go? You have to be here, so
right?
we can do whatever
You'd
the
have
fuck
to
we
go
want.
through us. So if we want, we could make you sit there for like another 3 hours, and then close it down just because they feel like it. But to get it back to Notre Dame, it's like a lot of people are saying that the burning down of Notre Dame is kind of a symbol of the times of this disconnection from uh, our past, and disconnect from leaders to their people. And it's not as though that I totally disagree with that. I think to a certain degree, this tragedy does symbolize those things.
Yeah, I can see that. Um, and maybe is a kind of the optimistic version of me is saying it's like, okay, we have one of the great pieces of church history burning, and I think it's also a good opportunity to share the gospel, to share um, it's not about this building, but it does represent something. And what does it represent? And that it can create opportunities to share the gospel,
Sure.
especially in
Yeah. Absolutely.
especially in a place like Paris and other areas of France, which have um, are pretty much it's spiritually dead, I would say.
Right. Yeah. Again, even though it's kind of a tragedy as in a cultural or historic sense, it's I can't help but feel that this is God saying this is kind of like divine judgment in a way. It's like you take pride in this thing, but you don't exemplify the things that it represents. Compassion, mercy, grace, forgiveness, redemption. If the country no longer exemplifies those virtues, then what good is this building? And you have a leader that fancies himself a god. And so you can kind of see it as you can kind of see this as divine. I don't want to say punishment, but let's say discipline, divine discipline.
Yeah, it's it's pretty horrible. But yeah, I don't know. Europe is kind of on that it definitely spiritually dead scale, if not
And it's interesting
but
because even though that they don't have a rule about the separation of church and state, European countries seem to be more atheistic than the United States, which does have uh, uh, you know a church and state separation kind of clause.
and let's be honest with that, what that means. That doesn't mean that there can't be any sort of religious symbols
Government,
within government,
right?
but it's not what it is there can't be the government will not be a sponsor to a particular you know church or religion, as it
Right.
was in England with like the Anglican Church, which is the Church of England, which where people were, if they didn't go there, in some cases they were killed or arrested.
There
That
you go.
was what they were trying to
Yeah, that's
avoid.
exactly right. Yeah, because everyone says like
And there,
everyone cites like, oh, separation of church and state, because Pence said that he wouldn't that because Pence prayed before his lunch or whatever. It was like that's not what it
and
was
the
talking
other thing
about.
too is they're getting that too from writings of Thomas Jefferson, not from the actual like Declaration or the Constitution. That was never in there. It was from Thomas Jefferson's writings talking about that stuff, and he was talking about like, yeah, we shouldn't that we should not have a state-sponsored church.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so basically saying that the government can't say you are now a Christian, or the or
Right.
or even a state run religion.
Yeah, that was never going to happen.
Yeah. So
But
I mean, I think I
yeah,
think
we're
I think the fire has been contained, and it wasn't a total loss. So I think we lucked out in that.
well, like I said, it's the building's not lost. It structurally, it's still that was what they were really worried about, and they're finding at least some of like the stained glass windows they're going to be able to recover.
Mm-hmm.
The and some of the other artifacts will be able to be recovered. So I mean that's good news. I mean, at least not everything was lost.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like you're getting some crazy BuzzFeedy type articles talking about like should we rebuild Notre Dame as it was, or make it something that can be turned into this like museum or what, which is
Right,
like
right. Yeah, I mean, just before we, came live, one of our buddies, Matt, sent us a quick article about how, they were entertaining that exact question, whether or not, they're going to preserve the history and, the culture of, the cathedral, or are they going to build something to reflect more of this multicultural utopian fantasy stuff. And I really hope it's the former and not the latter.
yeah, because I mean it was still being used as a cathedral, wasn't it? Didn't they have like
Yeah, I mean they still had
masses and
mass.
stuff there?
I think they still had mass every Sunday, and And even though it was, again, like a tourist attraction, I think it was still used for official church things.
Okay. I hope that that's the case, that they restore it back to the way it was as best they
Hmm.
can, and um, so that people have a place to go and worship. For the like 5 Christians that are left in France.
Seriously.